Hello, I'm Ben Klein. As a lawyer and AIDS Law Project Director at GLAAD, I appreciate this opportunity to give you some insight into GLAAD's current work to ensure that LGBTQ people can access critical health care. And as a guy who thinks a yellow legal pad is pretty much all that he needs, I've had to get up to speed on some technology that others embraced years ago. So, from my screen to your screen, thanks for watching. Before I say anything else, though, I want to thank all of you. Without you, none of GLAAD's work would be possible. And I know I speak for our entire staff when I say we are so grateful to have you on our side and part of the GLAAD community in the fight for justice. Personally, I've been thinking a lot about community as we face the current public health crisis. I've reflected on my own search for community when I came out in 1979, and how in those years, we, all of us really, built that community from the ground up. And it was just a few years after I came out that the AIDS epidemic hit our community. We learned from necessity the importance of taking care of each other in a crisis. When gay men were dying because nobody in power seemed to care, we couldn't count on the government to take care of us. We couldn't count on the legal system to protect us. We learned to take care of each other. Politicians ignored our plight because we were a marginalized, in fact, we were a despised community. What did we do? We fought for faster drug development, and that saved lives. We created entirely new organizations. We brought volunteers together and created housing and brought meals to people and provided financial help for people who could no longer work. And we, as GLAAD lawyers, fought rampant discrimination and access to healthcare that people with HIV were experiencing at that time. It's a little bit hard for me to believe, but 22 years ago last month, a very nervous, younger version of me argued the first case heard by the United States Supreme Court under the Americans with Disabilities Act. In that case, GLAAD successfully sued a dentist who refused to treat a patient with HIV. The case established nationwide protections against discrimination, and it also marked the beginning of our being able to push back against medical providers who denied our humanity throughout the AIDS crisis and beyond. Just a few years after that, GLAAD's Jennifer Levi, who ultimately became our Transgender Rights Project Director, argued and won one of the first cases in the country challenging the denial of health care to a transgender person. Since that time, we've had many victories, we've seen tremendous progress, but LGBTQ people continue to face significant barriers in access to health care. The disparities we see based on sexual orientation and gender identity are profound. And the problem is worse if you are a person of color or low income. And all of this is rooted in the stigma, stereotypes, and ignorance that still are entrenched deeply in our society. And that is why today, with all of you, the fight for justice in healthcare continues. Let me tell you about what we're doing right now. First, we are working to ensure that all people who want and need HIV PrEP can obtain it. PrEP is a drug that can prevent HIV transmission. It's one of the most important breakthroughs in the fight against HIV. It offers our best hope of ending the epidemic. PrEP is also a very straightforward and well-established drug protocol. It is much less complex than many other drugs that primary care doctors currently prescribe. But because of stigma and misunderstanding, the reality is that PrEP has been vastly underprescribed, especially among gay men of color and transgender women. Too many primary care doctors won't prescribe PrEP. And the reason, negative attitudes about gay male sexuality and HIV itself. In January, we filed a lawsuit against a doctor whose patient contracted HIV after being denied a prescription for PrEP. This is unacceptable. And let me ask you this question. If there were a drug this simple that reduced the risk of disease in heterosexual people by almost 100%, do you think the doctor would have acted the same way? I don't think so. We filed this lawsuit so we can change physician practice and ensure that PrEP is available to everybody who needs it. You're also helping us continue the fight for healthcare for transgender people. We continue to see denials of healthcare based on stereotypes and ignorance, not only about who transgender people are, but about what essential treatment for gender dysphoria is. Many health plans continue to wrongly exclude coverage for particular and critical treatments like facial feminization surgery. Now, what these health plans are saying is that these surgeries are cosmetic, and that is completely contrary to the medical standards that are well established today. Those kinds of exclusions are based on a complete lack of understanding about who transgender people are. These surgeries, such as facial feminization, in fact, are critical for many transgender women to successfully transition and to live full, healthy, and productive lives. That's why in Connecticut, we just filed briefing and medical testimony at the State Human Rights Commission on behalf of a public employee whose municipal health plan benefits wrongly deny coverage for her basic medical needs. And we have argued that when an insurer excludes treatment for facial feminization surgery based on stereotypes and ignorance, they are violating the laws that prohibit discrimination on the basis of sex, on the basis of gender identity, and on the basis of disability. If this case is successful, it will be the first decision in the country recognizing the discrimination inherent in denying facial feminization. We are also in federal court right now seeking to end another major obstacle to healthcare for transgender people. The good news in the area of transgender healthcare is that a growing number of states, through legislation or regulation, now prevent private and public insurers from offering health plans that exclude all transition-related healthcare. They can't have these categorical exclusions any longer. But those insurance laws actually don't apply to some of our country's largest employers. And the reason is that many large employers find it more cost-effective to fund their own employee benefits rather than offering outside traditional insurance plans to employees, the kind of insurance that most of us are familiar with. We are suing one such company right now on behalf of Alexander Pangborn, a hospice nurse whose employer has a blanket exclusion of any health care for gender transition. This case is huge because we're fighting not just for Alexander to get the care that he needs and the care that he has been denied. We are also bringing this case to tell these employers, just because you fund your own plans doesn't give you the right to discriminate. And a special thank you to Alexander, who is a nurse, and who is on the front lines of the current public health crisis today. And thank you to all the healthcare providers who are doing that work. Each of these fights for healthcare coverage started before the COVID-19 crisis. And as we respond to the current emergency, we at GLAAD are doing everything in our power to ensure that the mission and the work that you believe in continues uninterrupted. I hope that the lessons our community learned decades ago, lessons about being there for each other in a crisis, taking responsibility for the most vulnerable in our community, I hope that those lessons inspire us to address the critical gaps that the current crisis is laying bare and to ultimately create real security for everyone. Your support, especially in this upheaval, shows your commitment to removing the healthcare barriers that still remain, especially for the most vulnerable in our community. And I couldn't be more grateful for that. If you want to know what else we're doing, you'll find the latest news up on our website, glaad.org. And as always, please don't hesitate to be in touch with me or anyone here at GLAAD with your questions, comments, or concerns. We are always happy to hear from you, and I hope that we will all be seeing each other in person very soon. Thanks again.